Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Open Mic Responder Roundtable. I'm Mike McCabe. I'm happy to be here with you today. I know it's been a little while, but we are back in the studio, and today I'm really, very excited to have our special guest. Anybody that watches the show Live Rescue on A&E knows this man. He's a West Coast hero. He's a friend of mine, and I want to welcome in today Captain Keith Wade of the Sacramento Fire Department. Keith, there you are. Welcome to Open Mic, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How you been, buddy?
Everything's good, pal. Everything's good. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. When you reached out, I was like, that sounds cool.
Yeah, no, man. And again, this is what it's all about. We started the podcast and trying to just get to know the responders a little bit better, talk about some of the hot topics. Like I said, we met each other on Live Rescue. We kind of got in contact early on. We certainly have a lot of similarities in the way we do things and the way we approach our professions and the way we approach, the things that we like to do as far as personally. So I said, this is a guy I got to get on so that everybody gets to learn a little bit more about him. So to jump off, I wanted to obviously welcome you and then say, how has the experience been on Live Rescue for you thus far?
Well, again, thanks, Mike, for having me. Dude, it's been crazy. When you come up in the fire service, and I had never done anything in TV or, anything on camera like that. And then I had moved into the PIO world, which is the public information officer world for the fire department. And I got contacted from the supervising producer there in New York, and I was like, "Oh, this opportunity!" Our department had never been a part of a TV series, done anything on TV except for local media. So we jumped at it. It was a hard process to get through some of the yellow tape. When you're going to partake in a thing like that. So once we got settled in, I didn't realize how much work it was going to be. I guess at first.
True.
There's a lot of effort, a lot of figuring out little things here and there with the crews on the ground. You can hear my dogs there, Cody and Luke, and they're going to make me mad at certain points, but we're going to be good.
We'll get through it.
So it's been a whirlwind of an experience. I've learned a ton, not just dealing with the TV show. I've learned a ton with about our community and about the people that we serve, and about our own firefighters, and kind of who they are and what's important to them. So it's been a great experience, and I wouldn't take anything back. It's we're moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that you make a good point. There's a lot of red tape to get through initially, not the least of which you legally, we always know legal is a big deal, right? So when we put cameras anywhere, in the public space, especially in people's homes or things like that, there's a lot of things that go along with that to get that cleared and to let that be, broadcast. So that's number one. And then also, from a perspective of getting the buy-in of the troops, right? Some people love it. Some people are all about it, while others, they're a little bit hesitant. They don't want cameras following them. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, we haven't. What was surprising to me is how many members were excited and willing to participate and didn't create any sort of an issue or kind of tell me like, hey, of course, there's been a few that go, look, I don't want anything to do with this. I just want to come to work and do my job. And we respect that. And we make sure we don't film with those people. The film crews that have been assigned to us out here have been awesome. They've been here over 10 months. It's going on a year, and we've developed some friendships and relationships with them that I think will last forever. We've really had no issues in the background with them. Very small, little minimal things. And I think we've gotten lucky in that respect, because sometimes I would think I'd stay up late at night going, imagine some of the problems that there could have been, and we've had none. So they're awesome. I love all of them. And we're looking forward to, hopefully, fingers crossed, moving forward and continuing the process with Live Rescue and A&E.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that what's neat about what we saw, and I saw while I was in the studio during the first season, is just the way that you present yourself in the community, which is what I can relate to. You're the captain out there, you're taking control of these situations, but in the same breath, you're actually having fun doing it. You're keeping it light. Which I don't know that people understand. Some people may be taken back by that. Some people view us as robots, or how come they're not serious, or how come they're chuckling or doing this. Whereas for us, right? I mean, we deal with so much craziness on a daily basis that keeping it light, keeps us focused, right? And in many cases keeps the patients, the victims, or those that are afflicted with something relaxed.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, you get it. We talk about it when you first start learning EMT 101. They talk about dark humor and it's kind of a mechanism just to keep maintaining and to deal with some of the stressors that this job is going to present to you. I try to have a good balance especially when I'm on camera. I don't want to come across as non-empathetic or callous or like I'm just joking around and not taking it serious. But there are times when I want to punch something in there and go, hey, we're human just like the person we're helping. We're trying our best to deal with that situation. You know how it is, Mike. You're dealing with a situation. Someone called you. You're there to make a decision and figure it out for that person. And if it could be the worst day of their life, and they've run out of options. So now you're there to provide some options and get them to success. And sometimes to punch in a little humor, a patient will love that. I've had many patients laugh. Laughter is the best medicine, and be riding in the ambulance. And it's just, that's who I am. That's not everybody. Right. I think my personality definitely comes across a little bit on the TV show at different times. I know I've heard feedback from the film crew. They've had to reel me in a couple times and go, hey, be careful on that, and I go, oh, it's just me. After 20 years of EMS, it's how I am and how I talk sometimes. So, and like you said, maybe some of the general public wouldn't understand that. And I can appreciate that. So we try to toe the line.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to understand that, we're not actors by any stretch. This is us. This is the way we act. So, yeah, sometimes we do have to reel it back because it's like, I'm just doing what we normally do. A lot of times we forget that there's cameras there or anything because we're just doing what we do on a daily basis. And I think that in a lot of situations, you touch upon, sometimes the best medicine for these folks is laughter, right? And I always tell my people here in our agency that if you hold somebody's hand, they'll remember that more than any medication you gave them, whether you had a good intubation, you know what I mean? If you just hold their hand and you're there for them in that moment, or you make a joke, that's what it's all about. And I think that's what's special about it.
You ever have that experience? I don't remember where I was, but I had a person, it was at like a backyard barbecue thing or something. And they had asked me, they always want to go like, what's the worst thing you ever seen? Or what was something you really remembered doing? And what was crazy, the way my brain works, I remember this lady, it was a nothing call really to me. It was a really kind of just a transfer from her home to the hospital. She had not been feeling well. And we were just talking in the back. I had done everything I kind of needed to do in the way of, vital signs, paperwork, whatever. And I'm sitting there next to her, and we were just laughing, and I was asking her lots of questions about her life, like where she was from, and come to find out she didn't grow up in California. And I just always like to get that connection, right? But remember, she turned to me and she looked at me and said, "What's your name?" Like, and the way she said, she was very sincere about it. Like, she wanted to know me, and she said, "Keith," she's like, "Thank you so much for the conversation." Like, and I remember thinking in my head, well, this woman really, as opposed to going to see a doctor, sometimes people just need someone to talk to, listen to them. I showed interest in her. I think no matter what, that day I impacted her in her life. And I remember later going, I didn't really tell anyone about that. I felt good about it. And that call just stuck with me. And I mean, that's over 10 years ago, that one certain call. It wasn't some crazy, fire grabbing someone out or some crazy trauma call or, something where I really had to think with medications and stress. It was just that human connection, and it's important.
I think you're 100% right. I mean, people wonder how we do this, and I think that falling back on those types of calls are what keep us moving, what keep us going in a
Yep.
positive direction, because we know that we actually made an impact on somebody and their perception as to what it is we do in this industry. So, yeah, I don't think it could be any more on point. I wanted to dive
Thank
into
you,
a
Mike.
couple. Yeah, well, I'm here to boost you up here, pal. You know what I mean? We're our own therapy. Um, I wanted to touch upon a couple hot topics because I know that people are always asking and wondering in society about the opioid crisis and what it is we're dealing with. And again, when we can go back to the show, we see a lot of overdose cases, right? And people say, well, what
Yep.
is this? This is always overdose, always overdose. Unfortunately, this is reality, right, Keith? I mean,
Hmm.
I think that, people that aren't in this industry, though you hear about it, though you read about it and you see it, we're seeing it every single day. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to touch upon that with you as to your feelings about what is going on in this country right now with this opioid crisis, but more importantly, how it affects responders. What are our feelings about it? And then again, obviously give you my take, but I'd love to hear your take on this.
It's such a weird situation because when I started, I don't even remember really discussing in paramedic school anything about
Nope.
pill overdoses, and
Nope.
which was back in 2000. It was always your heroin overdose
Yep.
and how you deal with that and how it's going to present to you, and then how do you administer Narcan and when do you administer it, and county to county, different policies, stuff like that. Then you get to Sacramento, and that's what it was. Heroin was your thing. And then you started going on these people who weren't your typical heroin user. They had no history of using heroin, but yet they're a clear narcotic overdose.
Yep.
And you're treating them with the Narcan, and then you're getting down into going like, how are they getting whatever they're taking? Then about Oxy.
Yep.
Made a big push here, and then you didn't see for years. It felt like we didn't see heroin
Right.
on the streets, and it's because people who wanted to do this activity figure out how to get a hold of the pills, be it like through their doctors, and it was being overprescribed,
Yep.
given out like Tic Tacs to everybody. And so then we weren't seeing any heroin. And we were seeing all these opioid overdoses and different prescription narcotics. And so then I don't know about where you're at, Mike, but out here, it's like they got a hold of it, kind of like, okay, we're not giving pills out as easily. Now all of a sudden it was back to heroin.
Yep.
And you started seeing them back on the street. It was like you're like, oh, the classic drug is still there, and they're still going to use it.
That is 100% accurate. I don't want to say I'm happy to hear that, but it's interesting to hear that because it's the exact same way here. And what that was nothing more than what you just said, right? So it was when we had people that had surgery or anything else, right? They were getting on these pain meds. And when they got on the pain meds, these are white collar people. These are Wall Street people here in New York. These are professional individuals who have, these very high paying jobs, who live in these really affluent areas. They went and got their shoulder done. They got Oxy for the pain. And all of a sudden, right, it gave off this euphoria that they couldn't break. And so they were on it. They were on it until the doctors realized that they couldn't continue to prescribe these things, right? So now we had these individuals who turned to narcotics that are now out on the street buying heroin. And that's how this whole thing has evolved. And it's very, very sad.
You make a good point, Mike, about it. I mean, it hits all corners of society. It's not just some, what people would think of, like a homeless person's out there shooting up heroin. There's firefighters that I've known personally that have dealt with that demon of getting hooked on prescription pain medicine. So, any family is, capable of being impacted by that, and people need to look out for warning signs. And I can tell you this: in the Sacramento Fire Department last year, 2019, we pushed Narcan, I think 630 plus times, which is, a couple times a day in the city. They're pushing Narcan for someone having respiratory depression from whatever it is, an opioid or heroin. So it's definitely a problem. I'm glad to see that it seems like they're taking steps to try to limit that access to the medication, but it's a law enforcement deal, limiting access. And I know there's people out here who think, well, you should just make it all legal and just, you tax it. You set up places where people can go get high because they're going to get high no matter what. I don't know if that's the fix. I don't know if I like that talk.
Yeah, that might be a little aggressive. But yeah, I mean, I think we're in a way now where we're just seeing it. We're seeing it so much that just like anything that we deal with, we become desensitized to it. Right. We're seeing it so much that it's just everydayness. And, that's where it starts to get dangerous, because you do start to lose your empathy, even though we have to maintain that empathy. Like you said, it's all corners. It's not just one section. It's not just one socioeconomic area. No. It's everywhere. No. People say, well, what do you do? This is just another overdose. We're the ones that are dealing with this on a daily basis. We have to figure out a way, to stay engaged in the population and to get these people help. In New Jersey, they just authorized us starting buprenorphine, which is actually a medication that starts the rehab process after you push Narcan. It's something very new. I think we're one of the only states in the country that's doing this. But that in itself tells you how rampant this is. These are these proactive stances that we're taking now to try to cure this epidemic, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I have not heard of that. It's definitely an issue. The one though, Mike, that always pops up in my head is alcohol.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's the cause of and solution to all of the problems, it seems like. I mean, and every call it seems like I go on, alcohol is mixed into it somehow. One way or another. And so along the same line, I mean, there's a lot of issues, and it's glad to know that people are working on the front trying to solve some of this stuff, because in the line we talk about it, we come back to the firehouse and you sit there and have a conversation, go, man, that was messed up. And you start like, they should be doing this or they should be doing this. We all have our, ideas, but nothing ever really gains traction in the firehouse. And so it's good to know that, at a higher view, some people are possibly working on these things to try to address it, because it is a national crisis and something needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, you see this stuff now. And again, what people don't realize is the impact it can have on us emotionally. When you see some of these situations where you have parents that are high, on these narcotics, on these opioids, with kids in the car and things like that. It's tough. It's hard to see. And that this is a disease. Just like alcoholism is a disease. It's easy to look down upon these people, and I guess maybe this is something that keeps us grounded as responders, because you always have to go back to the fact that, hey, this is a disease. These people don't want to be this way, right? They need help, and they need that encouragement to get that help. So, that's what I always look for and look towards to stay, grounded in this, because it's certainly easy to get desensitized and get pulled down. The question I had for you is, how do you handle it as far as refusing medical attention? If you have an overdose, does the patient reserve the right to refuse medical attention?
If they're alert and oriented, if they can answer all the questions, they have a steady gait. It means they're steady on their feet. They're not obviously intoxicated to the point of that they can't care for themselves.
Right.
I've had people sitting there, they have no respiratory depression. They're able to answer. Someone else called for them. They didn't call 911 themselves. We go through that line, do you know who you are, where you are, what time of day it is, why we're here. If they answer all that stuff and they're not slurred speech, they're not exhibiting any signs and symptoms that would tell me this person can't care for themselves and we need to take control.
Right. They
have the right, at least here in California, to refuse that service, sign out at AMA. We do a release. That's our policy. They have to, we're not going to be held liable. I used to give a speech and to some of these people, like, look, I'm not going to lose my house, all my rental properties, my jet skis. It was a joke,
Of course.
lose all my stuff because you're not going to sign an AMA. But I felt like that. Like, I'm not getting in trouble in my job. I'm not risking myself, when I know you need to go get help, because I know there's probably caregivers across the nation that are like, whatever, I don't, and they don't care, and they walk away. And I hope that doesn't happen too often, but
Right.
you run a big risk. I feel anytime you do an AMA with certain people, you got to be very careful.
You definitely do. And, it got to the point where, like you said, we know that it's a drug, right? We know that they're under the influence, but it's no different really than any other medical condition. If they're lucid, right? If they can make conscious decisions, they have the right to refuse that medical attention. But in the same breath, you have to make sure that you're covered as responders, where they're not going to go out and either get hit by a car or something else where we're on the hook for letting them go. That's always a challenge. I mean, I've had people literally after Narcan administration open up the back doors and just run out. They don't want anything to do with us, right? So it just becomes more. I
had not slammed, but we gave Narcan.
Yep.
Like literally as we're pulling them up, backing into an ER bay, and I wasn't paying attention. This dude came up. I mean, swinging.
Yeah, he came up swinging.
You've been there.
Yep.
And next thing you know, you're fighting. He took off sprinting, running after he got out of the ambulance, and I was sitting there like, all right, it was like maybe now I wish I didn't give him the Narcan and wake him up and save his life. But they're not happy to be in that situation. You ruin their high.
Yep.
They don't care that you could argue with them all day, but it can be a dangerous situation. I remember in medical school, Mike, the text read "Look out!" with exclamation point when you give Narcan. That was one of the precautions.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't get that either. It's dangerous. So, for viewers and listeners that don't know that, when you administer Narcan, if you administer it too hard or too fast, it breaks that high so quickly that it induces vomiting, number one, and they become very violent. The patient can be very violent, which puts responders at risk. So, there's a way to administer Narcan safely, titrating it to respiratory, and making sure that they come out of it in a way where nobody's in danger. So, a lot of takeaways. I think there's a lot that people don't get about it. I think that there's a lot of preconceived notions about this. But again, at the end of the day, we have to maintain our professionalism in the same way as anything that's not overly exciting or can become frustrating to us. Another thing, Keith, that and again, we saw it with you in Sacramento a lot, was the homeless population or the frequent flyers that we see. You had a lot of viewers that would say, this is ridiculous, what a waste of time, this can't happen. We don't choose our patients.
No, we do not choose our patients. We don't choose the call. And it's funny, doing this job so long, you can, the film crews would be amazed because we'd come pulling up on scene. And I go, oh, here he is. I go, this is Jason.
Yep. Exactly. Right.
I know this guy. And I tell them, they're like, really? You know him? I'm like, known him for 10 years. We've been playing this game. And I don't mean to call it a game. It's not a game. You see this cycle, that takes place. And you feel kind of helpless on it. You do start at certain points going like, what are we doing back out here again? Can't dispatch just screen the call back and go, all right, it's Jason. But no matter what, whoever calls for the fire service across this nation, someone's coming.
Absolutely.
We don't do a system status and stat calls. They're going to send the next closest company and they're on their way no matter what it is. So that frequent flyer call, it's been a reality since EMS started.
Sure. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And again, I think that people, they don't realize that when you have frequent flyers, yes, it's definitely frustrating. I'm not going to sit here and say otherwise. But, you can say that, the first 6 times that individual called, it was for nothing, right? It was probably more reaching out for help, just that emotional aspect. But that 7th time they call, if they're in cardiac arrest and you treated it as the first 6 times, you're in big trouble. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because it's not to say that there's not a medical emergency here. I mean, I had a woman one time that would call literally twice a day, and this went on for months. And then about 6 months later, 7 months later, she called again, and again we know her by name. Oh, here she is. She's calling again. We got there, and she was in cardiac arrest. The daughter had called, and that there was that dynamic that the daughter would call or she would call or whatever else. You don't know. You never know. And we can never let our guard down in this industry.
Never let our guard down. Never, the big word, I never assume. I've had guys walk up and go, oh, this guy's drunk. and I used to precept paramedics, and they used to just irk me. And I would go into stories of I knew of firefighter medics, even when I worked in the privates of medics and EMTs who let their guard down, who assumed, oh, this guy's just intoxicated, but didn't realize that the person had fallen, hit their head. Now they have a closed head bleed.
Yep.
And next thing you know, they start posturing, and you're going, oh, because they didn't do a thorough assessment. They didn't do a good primary and secondary, really look at their vital signs. And they're just doing a normal transfer. Next thing you know, you're in a courtroom answering for yourself. That's what you don't want to have happen. You don't want to lose your whole career and everything you've worked for because you're not being thorough and you're making an assumption.
And on the same breath, how do you live with yourself, right? How do you live with yourself for the rest of your life, knowing that you allowed that to happen because you got lazy, because you got blinded by the fact that, oh, you know what, it's the same thing, it's another drunk or whatever else, right? Guess what? There are so many presentations with closed head injuries, right? With anoxia, all these different things that could present as if somebody just being drunk. Diabetes, right? We have the same thing. All of these types of things they're very easy to pass off, and that is letting your guard down. So, it's important, for responders and viewers alike to know that, I know it's hard. I know it's hard. We live this every single day, and certainly it gets sometimes to be very difficult. But the day you let your guard down is the day you're going to get caught.
Yep. Yeah. Don't shift into neutral.
No, never do that. Never do that. So what I wanted to do is, as we start to wrap up, one of the positions that you hold in Sacramento that I don't think everybody knows about is PIO, which is Public Information Officer, which is, I like to say that it's such an underrated position. People don't really, number one, understand it, and they don't really care about it. But it probably is one of the most important positions, whether it's EMS, fire, or police. And that's the point person, the person that is going to give that information out to reporters, speak on behalf of the agency. Tell me a little bit about that, Keith.
Yeah, in Sacramento, it's a 2-year commitment to be the PIO. You literally get tapped on the shoulder and go, hey, so my predecessor had noticed I like to talk, and he knew I was comfortable doing that stuff. So he recommended I go to a couple of training courses and said, hey, he wanted to rotate out. It was time for him to get back on the line. And he said, I think you'd be good at it. So I went and took a class, and then I took another class, and you have to apply for it here in Sacramento. They just don't. After they tap you, there is a process. It opens up to everybody. But out of like 600 personnel, I was the only one that applied, which was kind of scary to me because I was like, oh, what am I getting myself into? And I really didn't know until this guy had came to me and said it, what a PIO was or did. I didn't care. I was a fire captain, so you hit it spot on, Mike. I'm the chief's designee. I mean, my office is right next to him, and I sit and I speak for the agency, speaking for him. And giving information, I MC events, I do all the not only traditional media interviews and outreach. I'm 24/7 on the media line, but I also handle social media accounts. I got a civilian that just came in that is a communication specialist who is now helping with social media because it is his own crazy animal, as you know. I was feeling the weight and the stress. California, Sacramento, we're the capital of the 5th largest economy in the world. We're a busy city. We're not huge. We're 450,000, I think, population. But the fire department's busy, and we're large enough, 24 houses, over 600 personnel. I'm on the news constantly. I mean, there's stories to be told. And I always say if you're not, as an agency, having someone telling your story and narrating your story, it's going to get told with or without you. So you better grab a hold of it and start that narrative. And you want that public support. You want it gains trust, the support of the community, and in line with that, your members are happy then that your story is getting told because they want the community to know what you're doing. It's an awesome thing.
It's such a daunting job because, like you said, you're speaking on behalf of the agency. You don't want to slip up. You want to say the right thing. But I think you make an incredible point in the sense that, listen, social media is what it is now, right? We know it's everything, everywhere. Nobody does anything anymore without it being posted immediately. So you're either going to be on board with it, or you're not going to be on board with it. And you can use it as a platform to push the industry forward, to push your agency forward. You just need the right person in charge, which happens to be Captain Keith Wade of the Sacramento Fire Department.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I just saying. I mean, Corey Lang said he should have been in it, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there.
Well, we'd be running a big risk having him do it, Yeah, but talk about handler.
But look how good he would look with that mustache.
He would. He'd be what the community expects.
Yeah, he looks like W.B. Mason. I've said that all along. So before we cut out, I did want to touch upon a personal note because I did a little bit of research, and I did find out something very interesting about you. Is that you have a tendency to do some screaming on stage. So you happen to play in your own band. But more interestingly about this story is that it is an all-fire band. So tell me a little bit about this, sir.
When I was still on the line as a captain at Station 4 in Midtown Sacramento, we have the oldest firehouse in the city. It was built in 1933. We have a basement, only firehouse with a basement. Mm-hmm. And every member of my crew plays an instrument. There was a bass player, a guitarist, actually two guitarists. Okay. And so one guitarist who is insanely just engaged in music. That's his whole life besides being a firefighter. He was my driver, and he brought in his kid's set of drums, and he kind of self-taught himself some drumming. Okay. And he set it up in the basement. He asked if he could. I said, yeah, I don't care. I thought it was a good stress relief for them to play music. I always wished I played an instrument. So they're down there one day, and then they come up and they say, hey, we got a microphone. We got the PAs. Everything are set up. Come down and let's make a song, something about the fire service. I go, all right, I'm crazy enough to come down there and play into it. So I wrote lyrics, which I've never written a lyric in my life. But I listened to the music, I wrote something, and we developed a song. And it actually was pretty good. So I told you earlier, Mike, crews will come in, check us out. And then next thing I know, I think it was maybe 4 months later. Now, mind you, I'd never been on stage. I never performed. No experience at all. 4 months later, I'm on the stage at a club in Sacramento called the Starlight. And we're playing to a crowd of like 100 people. And I'm like, I was scared to death. But I did it. We did the whole thing.
And the rest is history because you're killing it now. You're killing it.
I'm an adrenaline junkie, so I like to get uncomfortable. But man, I still don't feel comfortable performing, but it is a great way to, when you're stressed out, grab that mic and just go for it. I'd be sweating. It's like a workout. Yeah. And I enjoy the music. It's kind of like a punk, Rage Against the Machine type of a thing. Pretty heavy, and it's all about the fire service, the dark side of the fire service.
The dark side. And the name of the band is DOM, right?
Yes. Yep.
Which Defenders of Midtown. Defenders of Midtown. And we're going to figure out a way to get some footage of this, folks, so that we can post it, so that we can all watch and then support Keith and the boys. But like I said, I knew we had a lot in common because I played in a college band as well, rock band, and I'm a drummer. But again, I'm self-taught drummer, and it's the best.
We need to fly you out here.
Let me tell you something, man. I can be in the Defenders. I just don't want to mess with the guy that self-taught himself on his kid's drum set. He sounds scary.
Well, to be honest, he rotated now back to guitar, his natural instrument. We had one band member drop out, and now we have another firefighter who transferred into that station that is a drummer. Okay. So they're all together still over there. I'm in admin in the office, but we get together not as often as we'd like because we're all husbands and dads, and we got craziness. But usually once or twice a month we get together and practice, and we are hoping to do a show sometime soon.
Well, you're going to have to keep us posted on that, and I will absolutely come out and jam with you guys when I'm in Cali. But I wanted to say that I thought that this was awesome having you on, Keith. As I said, we connected right out of the gate. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we share in common, and I think that the listeners gain a lot of perspective from what you have to share. And again, a lot of the things that you do, the collateral type stuff, you know, you're not just a captain, you're not just a paramedic, but you're a PIO. There's a lot that goes into this job. There's a lot of different tasks that we have, that we share, that people don't even understand, but they go a long way in what it is we do. So again, I want to thank you, brother. I want to wish you all the best moving forward on the show and in the career and in the band.
Thank you, Mike. Hey, same to you. Keep doing the Lord's work. I think it's awesome that you're doing this. You know, you're giving some voices, and I think there is a want from the community to want to know what we do. You know, the statistic, I'll share this real quick, 1 in 6 members of the community will have contact with a firefighter or EMS at some point in their life. So what is the other 5 going to think? You know, they want to know. There's a natural curiosity of, what is our local firefighters? What are our local paramedics and EMTs? What are they doing? And what does their job entail? So you're providing an outlet for that. I think it's awesome. You do a great job. Miss seeing you on the show, but I think from getting to know you, I'm going to see some big things from you in the future. And I hope to maybe tag along a little bit here and there.
I think that that's probably a safe bet, and I think that the listeners and the viewers may see Keith with me a little bit more. So I look forward to that, Keith. Stay safe, brother. We will talk to you real soon. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Open Mic Responder Roundtable. We will be back with you probably next week with another guest, and we hope that you can join us and hop on and learn just a little bit more about us. All right. Thanks again for joining us. We'll talk real soon.